Before I died, the last call I made was cut off by Ryan Carter. At that moment, he was holding another woman in his arms, cherishing her like she was the most precious thing in the world. That woman was pregnant, and his mother, Mrs. Carter, called her a treasure over and over again, slipping a bracelet onto her wrist. Ryan looked at her with such warmth, such love, that the scene almost felt surreal. But their happiness was short-lived. Soon, the news of my death would reach them. Floating above, I could see my lifeless body curled up in the backyard, covered in the first snowfall of winter. The cold had claimed me before anyone even noticed I was missing. The phone I had dropped on the icy ground vibrated a few times. Ryan was calling back. Too late. The device flickered and died, succumbing to the extreme cold. He had finally decided to call me, but it no longer mattered. At first, I had planned to leave this world quietly, to disappear without a trace. But the sound of the swing creaking in the backyard caught my attention. The same sound from when I was a child, when Ryan would push me high up into the sky, laughing beside me. A sudden urge filled me to say goodbye to him. He never even knew I had cancer. He never gave me the chance to tell him before hanging up on me. I hesitated for a moment and opened Mia Thompson's social media profile. Of course, she had posted another video, this time in the luxurious house Ryan had bought for them. His mother's voice could be heard in the background, fussing over her as if she were royalty. "I'm going to be spoiled rotten," she had written in the caption, along with a string of heart emojis. I dropped my phone onto my lap, unwilling to see more of Ryan's happiness with someone else. The pain in my stomach intensified, a sharp, twisting agony that doubled me over. A cough bubbled up from my throat, and suddenly I was vomiting blood onto the pristine white snow. The crimson spread rapidly, staining the ground like spilled ink. My legs trembled as I tried to stand, but I collapsed back onto the old wooden swing. I was about to die, yet I was still making things harder for myself. Memories flooded my mind. The backyard that once held so much warmth was now abandoned, just like me. The old wooden fence was barely standing. The bricks along the path cracked and broken. No one had taken care of this place since my grandparents passed away. Ryan and I had left long ago, chasing lives that no longer included each other. And yet I found myself here at the end, in the same place where we had first laughed together, dreamed together. A cold wind howled through the yard. In my haze, I swore I heard Grandma Rose's voice. "Little Emily, come inside. The rice cakes are warm on the stove." My lips quivered at the memory. I could almost taste them, sticky and sweet, dipped in sugar, the way Ryan used to love them. "Eat it while it's hot, Em. It's the best this way." His teenage self flashed before me, bright-eyed and grinning, feeding me little pieces of warm cake while blowing on them to cool them down. "Ryan Carter, you're such a show-off," I had teased him back then. "If you don't smile for me, I won't give you any," he had threatened playfully. But I never worried. I knew he would always share with me. He always did, until now. Until he turned his love and care toward someone else. Ryan and I grew up together in this very house. My parents were caught in an ugly divorce, constantly fighting, and his parents were always too busy working. So we were left behind in the small town, raised by our grandparents. Together, we survived everything. When other kids called us the abandoned ones, we fought back, side by side. After school, we did our homework at the same table, falling asleep over open notebooks. Our grandfather would wake us up with a light knock on the head, pretending to scold us, but always with a smile. When I was 10, I got chickenpox in the middle of winter. I was burning up with fever, alone in the house because all the adults had gone to a town hall meeting. Only Ryan stayed behind with me. Even though he knew he could get sick, he carried me on his back for miles, trudging through knee-deep snow to get me to the hospital. "Emily, don't be scared. Just a little longer, okay? The doctor will make you better soon." He was only 12, yet his voice was steady, reassuring. Even as his thin arms trembled from the weight of carrying me, he never let go. The world around us was frozen, endless white stretching in every direction. But I wasn't afraid. I had Ryan Carter. That was all I needed, or at least that's what I used to believe. For days, my body lay frozen in the backyard undiscovered. I wondered if some unfortunate neighbor would stumble upon it first. Would they be horrified? Would they pity me? I had thought death would be the end, but I hadn't expected to still be here. wandering between the living and the dead. A final thought surfaced in my mind. I needed to find Ryan. Maybe if I appeared in his dreams, he would know I was gone. Maybe that was the only way my soul could finally rest. After all, his name was still on our marriage certificate. Shouldn't a husband, even an ex-husband, help clean up the mess I left behind? That wasn't too much to ask, was it? Before leaving, I turned back to look at the snow-covered yard one last time. A long, long time ago, Ryan Carter had confessed to me here under the winter moonlight. Emily Lawrence, I like you. At 14, I was spoiled, arrogant, and knew Ryan would do anything for me. You're such a fool, Ryan. Even something this small, you need to say it out loud? His face had turned bright red. Say it back, he had muttered. I had only laughed, teasing him, enjoying the way he struggled for words. But in the end, I had leaned in close, whispering, I like you too, Ryan. I still remembered the way his whole body had lit up with joy, the way his fingers had tightened around mine, as if sealing a promise. We had believed that love would last forever. We had been so wrong. Now, as I stood in front of our old house, staring through the frosted windows, I saw Ryan pacing restlessly in his apartment, dragging a hand through his disheveled hair. Inside, Mia Thompson was already making herself at home, touching everything, erasing my existence with every careless movement. And then, she did something that made my fingers curl into fists. She threw away my last batch of rice cakes, the ones I had made just before I died. Ryan's gaze flickered toward the trash can, lingering for a moment, but he said nothing. Mia giggled, wrapping her arms around his neck. Oh, Ryan, don't be mad at me. I just thought they were old and gross. He didn't argue. He just let her erase me, piece by piece. And that was when I knew. I was done waiting for him to remember me. If I had to haunt him forever, I would. The first time Ryan Carter and Emily Lawrence met, they were just children, too young to understand what love really was. Emily had just moved into town with her mother after a messy divorce. She had been reluctant, resentful even, about leaving behind her old life in Seattle to settle in a small town where everything felt too slow, too quiet. Her mother had rented a modest house next to Mrs. Carter's bakery, a family-owned shop that had been running for generations. The scent of fresh bread and cinnamon rolls drifted into their home every morning, a cruel reminder that Emily could never truly escape reality. Ryan was the first person in town to speak to her. Hey, do you want to play with us? Emily had been sitting alone on the swing set in the backyard, watching a group of kids play soccer in the empty lot across the street. Ryan, slightly older but full of warmth, had jogged up to her, his face red from running. She hadn't answered right away, unsure whether she even wanted to make new friends. Come on, he had grinned, taking her hand. You look like you could use some fun. And just like that, she had become a part of his world. They had been inseparable ever since. When she scraped her knees, Ryan was the one who patched them up. When she needed a study partner, he was the one who showed up with notebooks and snacks. When she cried about her parents fighting, he was the one who stayed up all night, keeping her company under the blanket fort they built together. And when he fell in love with her, it had felt like the most natural thing in the world. Emily Lawrence, I like you. She had laughed at his confession, but deep down, she had already known. She had known for years, and that was why she had thought, foolishly, naively, that nothing would ever change. Now, as Emily's ghost stood outside Ryan Carter's penthouse apartment, she realized how wrong she had been. The boy who once held her hand so tightly, the one who had promised to stay by her side forever, was now inside, with another woman. She watched Mia Thompson drape herself over him, her perfectly manicured nails tracing his jawline as she whispered something into his ear. Ryan smiled at her. It was the same soft, intimate smile he used to give Emily. A sharp pain pierced through her chest, not from the cancer that had taken her life, but from the brutal realization that she had already been erased from his world. Emily should have seen it coming. It had started with the small things. Ryan canceling date nights because of work emergencies. Ryan forgetting anniversaries, birthdays, the little things that once meant everything. Ryan's texts becoming shorter, colder, less like himself. At first, she had convinced herself that he was just stressed. The firm is demanding, Em, he had told her. I'm trying to build a future for us. So she waited. She understood. She forgave. until the night she found Mia's earring in the back seat of his car. Ryan had come home late, again. His tie was loosened, his hair a mess, his jacket reeking of perfume that wasn't hers. Emily had confronted him, holding up the tiny diamond earring between her fingers. "Whose is this?" she had asked, her voice eerily calm. Ryan had hesitated, and in that single moment of silence, Emily had known. "It's not what you think," he had said, finally reaching for her. She had pulled away. "Then tell me, Ryan, what is it?" But he couldn't, and she had walked away before he could lie to her again. A month later, she was diagnosed with stage 4 stomach cancer. Ryan had still been in her life, but by then he was already gone, in every way that mattered. He never noticed the weight she lost. He never questioned why she barely ate anymore. He never saw the pain in her eyes when she begged him to stay home, just for one night. She had wanted to tell him. She had almost told him, but then she had found out that Mia was pregnant. And suddenly, her own pain no longer mattered. Ryan had moved on. He had chosen someone else. So why should she burden him with her dying body, her inevitable death? And that was when she had made her final decision. She had called him one last time, hoping, praying, that he would pick up. He didn't. And when she had collapsed into the snow that night, gasping for breath, her final thought had been, "Ryan Carter, you used to be the boy who carried me through the cold. Where are you now?" As she stood outside Ryan's apartment now, watching Mia whisper sweet nothings into his ear, Emily finally understood. He wasn't going to mourn her. He wasn't even going to realize how much he had lost. And that thought enraged her. If she was going to disappear from this world, then she was going to make sure Ryan Carter never forgot her name. Not in this life, not in the next. It was December 12th. The night was colder than usual, the kind that seeped into your bones and refused to leave. Snow had begun to fall in slow, silent flakes, covering the world in an unbroken sheet of white. Emily Lawrence sat on the wooden swing in her childhood home's backyard, staring at the dim light coming from the window of her empty house. She was alone, completely, utterly alone. Her phone sat in her lap, screen still illuminated with Ryan Carter's contact name. The words "call ended" were displayed, mocking her. She had dialed him one last time, hoping, praying, that he would pick up, that he would hear the weakness in her voice and know something was wrong, that he would come running the way he used to when they were kids, that he would save her one last time. But instead he had sent her to voicemail, and now she didn't have the strength to call again. Her fingers trembled as she gripped the phone tighter. Every breath was a struggle, every movement drained her. The cancer had won. The doctors had told her she had at least 6 more months, maybe a year if she responded to treatment. But Emily had stopped treatment weeks ago. What was the point? Ryan had already moved on. He had a new life, a new love, a new family on the way. There was no room left for her. She should have hated Mia Thompson, but she didn't. The woman had done nothing wrong, at least not in Ryan's eyes. To the world, she was perfect. The kind of woman people adored, bright-eyed, beautiful, carrying Ryan Carter's child. Emily had watched from a distance as Mia stepped effortlessly into her place. She had seen the engagement ring. She had seen the pregnancy announcement. She had seen the pictures of Ryan kissing Mia's stomach, his eyes full of joy, the same eyes that had once looked at her the same way. And Emily had realized something. She had been replaced, easily, effortlessly, as if she had never existed in his life at all. A sharp pain twisted in her stomach, causing her to double over. Blood pooled in the back of her throat before she coughed, dark red staining the snow beneath her feet. Her body was shutting down. Her time was up. She had thought dying would be terrifying, but now, as she lay curled up in the cold, she felt nothing at all. No pain, no sadness, no anger. Only emptiness. Her phone vibrated weakly in her hand, the screen lighting up. Ryan Carter was calling back. For a moment, hope flared in her chest, irrational, fleeting hope. But as she reached out with numb fingers, the device slipped from her grasp and landed face down in the snow. The cold swallowed the sound of the ringtone, burying it in silence. Her vision blurred, her heartbeat slowed, and nothing. When Emily opened her eyes again, she was standing in the same spot where she had died. But something was wrong. Her body was still there, lying lifeless in the snow, frozen and untouched. The world around her continued as if nothing had happened. She lifted a hand to touch her face, and her fingers passed right through it. She wasn't alive, but she wasn't gone either. A chill ran through her, colder than the winter wind. Why was she still here? It took 3 days for someone to find her body. On the 4th morning, a neighbor finally noticed something was wrong and called the police. The town was small, news traveled fast, and by noon, Ryan Carter knew everything. Emily watched as he arrived at her house, his usually polished suit disheveled, his face pale. He pushed past the crowd, eyes searching wildly, but he was too late. The coroner had already covered her body with a white sheet. Ryan froze. His entire body went stiff, his lips parting slightly as if trying to form words. But none came. His hands curled into fists, his breath shallow and ragged. Emily had imagined this moment before, him realizing what he had lost. She had thought she would feel satisfaction. That she would feel something. But as she watched the man she had once loved break apart in front of her, she felt nothing at all. Not sympathy, not anger, not even regret. He was too late. And for the first time, she finally understood what that meant. She was free. By the next day, Emily's death was all over the news. Ryan Carter's ex-wife found dead in her childhood home. The tragic story of Emily Lawrence, a life cut short. Why did no one notice her suffering? People who had once ignored her now pretended to care. Strangers mourned her. Friends she hadn't spoken to in years posted about how much they had loved her. Even Ryan's mother, Mrs. Carter, released a statement about how devastated she was. Emily wanted to laugh. Where were all these people when she was still alive? When she had called for help, had begged for someone to see her? She was nothing more than a tragedy now, a story to be told and forgotten in a matter of weeks. And Ryan, he would move on, just like he always did. Mia, of course, was furious. She had never expected Emily to die. She had always assumed that Ryan's ex-wife would eventually fade away, disappearing quietly like an old scar. But now, Emily's face was everywhere. People whispered about how Ryan had abandoned her, how he had chosen Mia over his dying wife. Mia could feel the judgment in every glance, every hushed conversation. "Ryan," she hissed, gripping his arm. "Say something. Tell them it's not true." Ryan didn't answer. He hadn't spoken much since the funeral. He barely even looked at her anymore. Mia's stomach twisted with unease. This wasn't how things were supposed to go. She was supposed to be Ryan Carter's perfect future. But instead, Emily Lawrence's ghost still haunted them both. Emily had planned to leave this world quietly. She had accepted her fate. But the night after her funeral, something changed. As she wandered the city streets, unseen and unheard, she found herself outside Ryan's penthouse. Through the window, she could see him sitting alone in the dark, a drink clutched tightly in his hand. For the first time since she had died, he spoke her name. Her breath caught. "Where are you?" And that was when she realized he could feel her. Maybe he didn't know it yet. Maybe he thought it was guilt. But deep down, in some dark and forgotten corner of his heart, he knew Emily wasn't gone, not yet, and she wasn't done with him. Not by a long shot. The night after her funeral, Emily Lawrence stood outside Ryan Carter's penthouse, staring up at the windows glowing dimly in the darkness. She wasn't supposed to be here. She wasn't supposed to be anywhere. And yet she was still here, a whisper of who she used to be, stuck between the living and the dead. She didn't know why. Maybe it was because she had unfinished business. Maybe it was because Ryan Carter had never truly let her go. Or maybe, just maybe, she wasn't ready to leave him yet. Inside, Ryan sat alone in his living room, a half-empty glass of whiskey in his hand. The ice had melted, watering down the liquor, but he hadn't touched it in hours. His eyes were bloodshot. His jaw was clenched tight. And for the first time in years, his phone lay untouched beside him. No texts, no emails, no calls to Mia Thompson. He hadn't spoken a single word to her since the funeral. Emily stepped closer, pressing her hand against the glass window. Her fingers passed right through. She shouldn't have been able to feel anything, but when she looked at Ryan, when she saw the way he whispered her name into the empty room, something in her chest ached. Emily. The sound of his voice sent a shiver down her spine. He knew. Maybe he didn't understand it yet. Maybe he thought it was just guilt. But deep down in some part of his soul, he knew she was still here. The next morning, Mia Thompson woke up alone. She sat up in bed, stretching, expecting to feel Ryan's warmth beside her. But when she turned, his side was cold. A pit formed in her stomach. He hadn't come to bed last night. She found him in the living room, still in the same clothes from the day before, his tie loosened and wrinkled, his head resting in his hands. The whiskey glass was shattered on the floor beside him. Mia frowned. "Ryan," she murmured, stepping forward carefully. "You should come to bed." He didn't respond. She sighed, crossing her arms. "I know this is hard, but—" She was alone. Mia stiffened. "What?" Ryan finally looked up at her, his expression hollow. "Emily? She died alone. No one even noticed she was gone." Mia swallowed. She had hoped Ryan would move on quickly. But this was dangerous. She could feel Emily Lawrence's ghost in this apartment, lingering in every corner, in every unspoken word, in every glance Ryan refused to give her. Mia forced a smile, kneeling beside him. "I know you feel guilty, baby, but you need to let her go." Ryan's hands curled into fists. "I don't think I can." Mia's nails dug into her palms. She wasn't just competing with memories anymore. She was competing with a ghost. It started small, little things barely noticeable. Ryan would wake up to find his coffee already poured, except he hadn't made it. Mia's perfume bottle would roll off the counter even though no one had touched it. The bedroom door would creak open in the middle of the night, as if someone was watching. At first, Mia convinced herself it was just her imagination. Until the piano played by itself. Ryan had barely touched it in the last 2 years, but that night, as Mia walked past the dimly lit room, she heard it, soft, familiar notes drifting through the air. The song was one she had never heard before. "But Ryan?" His face went pale. "Emily used to play that," he whispered. Mia's blood ran cold. She didn't believe in ghosts, but for the first time she was afraid to turn around. She didn't plan to haunt them. At first, she had only wanted to see Ryan one last time, to know that he had grieved for her, even if only for a moment. But the more she watched him, the more she saw Mia in her home, in her bed, in his arms, the more the bitterness grew. She had died alone. And yet, Mia had everything she had ever wanted: the home, the marriage, the baby. Emily had once dreamed of a future where she and Ryan built a life together, where they had a little girl with his green eyes and her dark hair. But Mia had stolen that future from her. So why should she let Mia have her happily ever after? Why should she let Mia win? Ryan Carter wasn't sleeping well. Every night he tossed and turned, haunted by whispers in the dark. At first he thought it was the wind, but then, one night, he woke up to the feeling of fingertips brushing against his cheek. When he opened his eyes, no one was there, but the scent of vanilla, Emily's favorite perfume, hung heavy in the air. His breath caught. "Emily?" The room was silent, but Ryan swore he heard something, a faint voice so soft he could barely make out the words. "Why did you leave me?" Ryan sat up, his heart hammering in his chest. He knew it wasn't possible. Emily was gone, and yet he could still feel her, watching, waiting, refusing to leave. Mia had spent the last week on edge. The lights flickered every time she entered a room. Her jewelry box would be left open, Emily's old engagement ring placed on top of her vanity. The kitchen faucet turned on by itself, scalding hot water spilling over the sink. She tried to ignore it, but then, one night, as she was stepping out of the shower, she caught her reflection in the steamed-up mirror. And behind her, 2 words had been written in the condensation: "Get out." Mia screamed. She ran out of the bathroom, dripping wet, shaking, Ryan's name spilling from her lips in a frantic panic. Ryan, we need to leave. We need to move. This place is haunted." Ryan blinked at her. "Mia, calm down. I'm serious. It's her. Emily's still here. She doesn't want me here." Ryan's expression darkened. He didn't argue, because deep down he had started to believe it too. That night Ryan had a dream. At least, he thought it was a dream. He was standing in their old backyard, the snow falling softly around him, and then suddenly Emily was there. She looked just as she had the last time he saw her, thin, pale, fragile, but still breathtakingly beautiful. "Ryan," his breath hitched. "Em?" She smiled softly, tilting her head. "Did you ever love me?" His heart ached. "Of course I did." Her smile faded. "Then why did you let me die alone?" Ryan opened his mouth to speak, but no words came. Because there was no excuse. There would never be an excuse. Emily took a step closer. Her voice was barely above a whisper when she said, "You don't get to forget me, Ryan." The wind howled, the dream shattered. And when Ryan woke up, he swore he heard her voice echoing in his ears. "You don't get to forget me." Mia Thompson had always been confident. She had never doubted that she was the woman Ryan Carter truly loved. She had won. She had taken his heart, his home, and soon she would give birth to his child. Emily Lawrence? She was just a tragic story now, a memory. Or at least, that's what Mia had wanted to believe. But lately, nothing felt right. Her dreams were restless, filled with shadows. Her reflection in the mirror seemed off, as if someone else was watching her from the glass. And Ryan was slipping further and further away. She had thought Emily was gone. But Emily wasn't gone at all. She was still here. And she was taking everything back. At first, Ryan had ignored it. The whispers, the cold spots in the apartment, the lingering scent of vanilla and jasmine. He had told himself it was grief, that it was guilt, that he was just imagining things. But after the dream, after seeing Emily standing in the snow, accusing him with those heartbroken eyes, he couldn't pretend anymore. She was here, and no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't stop thinking about her. He started sleeping in the guest room. He barely touched Mia. And worst of all, he had started listening to old voicemails from Emily, replaying her voice over and over again, as if trying to hold on to something that was already slipping through his fingers. Mia noticed, and she hated it. Mia woke up one morning to find something wrong. Her engagement ring, the one Ryan had given her, was missing. She searched the entire bedroom, pulling apart the sheets, checking under the bed, even digging through drawers she hadn't touched in weeks. Nothing. She was furious. "Ryan, did you take my ring?" she demanded. Ryan barely looked up from his laptop. "What? No. It's gone. It was on my nightstand last night, and now it's missing." Ryan sighed, rubbing his temples. "Maybe you misplaced it." "I didn't misplace it. Someone took it." Mia's voice was rising now, panic seeping into her tone. Ryan finally looked at her. "Who, Mia? Who would take it?" Her mouth opened, then snapped shut. Because the truth was, she knew who had taken it, but she couldn't say it out loud. She couldn't admit that she believed Emily's ghost had stolen her ring, because that would mean Emily still had power over them, and she refused to believe that. But later that night, as she brushed her hair in front of her vanity, she glanced at the mirror and froze, because there, on the glass, etched into the fog from her breath, was a single word: mine. That same night, Ryan couldn't sleep. The apartment was too quiet, too cold. He sat in the dim light of the living room, staring at his phone, his finger hovering over Emily's contact. He knew it was pointless. He knew she was gone, but he still wanted to call, just to hear her voice one more time. Just to say the words he had never said before. "I'm sorry." The words slipped from his lips in a whisper, his throat tightening. "I should have been there. I should have known." The room was silent, but in the stillness he felt it. A presence, like someone was standing behind him, watching, waiting. He turned around sharply, but no one was there, or at least no one he could see. His hands trembled. For the first time in his life, Ryan Carter was afraid. Not of ghosts, not of Emily, but of the realization that he had never truly let her go. And now it was too late. The whispers started slowly. At first they were online, people speculating, people talking. About how Emily had died alone, about how Ryan had abandoned her, about how Mia had stepped into Emily's place so easily, so shamelessly. The comments on Mia's Instagram turned vicious. "How does it feel to be engaged to a man who let his ex-wife die alone? You stole her life, and now you want sympathy? You'll never be Emily." Mia tried to ignore them, but then they followed her into real life. She went to a charity gala with Ryan expecting admiration. Instead, she got stares, cold glances, whispered words behind her back. Even women she used to call her friends avoided her now. And the worst part, Ryan didn't defend her. He barely even noticed. Because while Mia was drowning in public humiliation, Ryan was still thinking about Emily. And that broke Mia in a way she had never expected. The night Mia finally snapped, she was alone in the apartment. Ryan had gone to visit Emily's grave. He hadn't told her where he was going, but she knew, and it made her sick. She stormed into the bedroom, yanking open Ryan's drawer, only to freeze when she saw what was inside. Emily's old necklace, the one she had worn every day, the one Ryan had never thrown away. Mia's breath came fast and shallow. She needed to destroy it. She grabbed the necklace, preparing to throw it into the fireplace, when suddenly the lights flickered. The bedroom door slammed shut, and then, from the corner of the room, a whisper. Soft, haunting. Did you think I would let you keep him?" Mia screamed. She stumbled back, knocking over the nightstand, and that's when she saw it. The mirror. A message written across the glass in Emily's handwriting. "Leave." Mia's body trembled violently. She couldn't breathe. She couldn't stay here. And suddenly, for the first time since this nightmare began, Mia realized she had already lost. Ryan came home to find Mia packing her bags. Her hands were shaking, her face pale, her breath coming in short gasps. "I can't stay here." Ryan blinked, exhausted. "Mia, what are you talking about?" "She doesn't want me here, Ryan," she snapped, her voice raw. Ryan stiffened. "You're losing it," he muttered. Mia laughed bitterly. "No, Ryan, I'm finally seeing the truth." She met his gaze, her eyes blazing. "You never let her go." Ryan opened his mouth, but nothing came out, because Mia was right, and she knew it. Mia grabbed her suitcase, pushing past him. "You want to haunt yourself with a dead woman? Fine, be my guest." And just like that, she was gone. Emily had won. Ryan was alone. And now, the real haunting could begin. Mia Thompson was gone. Ryan Carter sat in his penthouse, staring at the untouched dinner across the table. The silence was deafening. No more bickering, no more Mia's perfume lingering in the air, no more distractions, just him, and the weight of everything he had done wrong. He should have cared. He should have been angry that Mia had left. But the only thing he felt was relief, because now he didn't have to pretend anymore. He had stopped pretending the moment he saw Emily's lifeless body covered in snow. He had stopped pretending when he felt her presence lingering in every shadow of this apartment. He had stopped pretending the moment he woke up each morning expecting to hear her voice, only to remember she was gone, or at least she was supposed to be. But she wasn't. She was still here. And now there was nothing left to distract him from her, nothing left to stop whatever was coming next. The wind howled outside, rattling the glass windows of the penthouse. Ryan lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, exhaustion pulling at his limbs, but he couldn't sleep. Not with her so close. He could feel her. Not in the way he used to, when Emily would curl up beside him, resting her head against his chest, her body warm and soft. No, this was different. This was cold. This was wrong. A shadow moved in the corner of the room. Ryan froze. He turned his head slowly, his heart pounding in his chest. The room was dark, but then a whisper, soft, familiar. "Ryan." His breath caught. The air in the room dropped, and suddenly the lights flickered, and he saw her, standing at the foot of the bed, her long, dark hair falling over her pale shoulders, her eyes empty, her lips parted as if she wanted to speak but couldn't. "Emily," he choked out. She tilted her head slightly, her fingers twitching at her sides. "You left me." Ryan's blood ran cold. "No, Emily, The lamp beside him shattered. He flinched as shards of glass flew across the bed. Emily took a slow step forward. "You let me die alone." Her voice was calm, too calm. Ryan's entire body tensed. "I didn't know," he whispered. Emily's lips twitched, but it wasn't a smile. "You didn't want to know." Ryan couldn't breathe, because she was right. He hadn't wanted to know. He had ignored the signs. He had ignored her calls. He had chosen to believe she would be fine without him. And now? Now she would never let him forget it. The next morning, Ryan woke up with bruises. Dark, finger-shaped marks wrapped around his wrists. He stared at them in the mirror, his hands trembling. Had he done this to himself, or had she? The thought made his stomach churn. Because deep down, he already knew the answer. But it didn't stop there. His nightmares got worse. Every night he saw her, standing in the snow, blood dripping from her lips, reaching for him, accusing him. And every time he woke up, there was something new waiting for him. A message scrawled into the condensation on his bathroom mirror. "Did you ever love me?" His phone ringing at exactly 2:37 a.m., the same time Emily had called him the night she died. The engagement ring he had given Mia, which had disappeared days ago, now sitting neatly on his bedside table. He was losing his mind, and the worst part, he deserved it. Ryan stopped going to work, stopped answering calls, stopped leaving the apartment. He was trapped, not by locked doors, not by anyone else's will, but by her, by the memories of Emily that wouldn't let him go. By the way, her whispers grew louder each night, her presence growing colder, more suffocating. By the way, he started to see her face everywhere, in the reflection of the elevator doors, in the city streets when he passed by strangers, in the coffee shop where they had once sat for hours, laughing about nothing. Emily was everywhere, and she wasn't leaving, not until he paid for what he had done. One night, Ryan finally broke. He sat on the couch, an unopened bottle of whiskey on the table in front of him, his hands gripping his hair. "What do you want from me?" he whispered. The apartment was silent. Then a gust of cold air swept through the room. The lights flickered. And suddenly, she was there, standing across from him, pale, beautiful, dead. Ryan's throat tightened. "Emily, please." Her head tilted, the way it always did when she was curious. "Please what, Ryan?" His eyes burned. "Please let me go." A long pause. Then, Emily took a step forward. "Did you ever love me?" Ryan's breath hitched. "Of course I did." She tilted her head further. "Then why did you let me die?" Tears burned behind his eyes. "I didn't know," he whispered. "I didn't." Her expression darkened. "You didn't want to know." Ryan's chest ached, because he knew she was right. "Emily, I'm sorry." Her lips parted slightly. Then, for the first time since she died, she smiled. "I know." Ryan's body trembled, and then she disappeared. Just like that. As if she had never been there at all. As if she had finally gotten what she wanted. As if she had finally let him go. The next morning, Ryan woke up to silence. No whispers, no flickering lights, no cold air creeping down his spine. Emily was gone. For the first time in weeks, he felt alone. And somehow that felt worse. Because now, he had to live with himself. With what he had done, with the knowledge that he had loved her but not enough to save her, and that would haunt him more than any ghost ever could. For the first time in weeks, Ryan Carter woke up without feeling her presence. No whispers, no flickering lights, no shadows lingering in the corner of his bedroom. Emily Lawrence was gone, and yet he felt her absence like a fresh wound, raw, gaping, impossible to ignore. He sat up slowly, running a hand through his disheveled hair. The apartment was eerily quiet. The air felt lighter, less suffocating. It should have been a relief, but instead it felt like a punishment, because now he had no one else to blame for his suffering. No ghost haunting him, no supernatural force keeping him trapped in the past, just himself, and the memories he could never escape. Life outside his apartment moved on. The world didn't stop just because Emily Lawrence had died. People still went to work, couples still held hands in coffee shops, strangers still laughed in the streets, oblivious to the fact that someone who had once lived, loved, and dreamed was now nothing more than a story, a tragedy whispered in passing. Ryan walked through the city, feeling like a ghost himself. He passed by the bakery where Emily used to buy her favorite cinnamon rolls. The owner greeted him with a nod, unaware that he hadn't stepped inside in years. He walked by the bookstore where Emily had once spent hours browsing, her fingers trailing along the spines of novels she would never get the chance to finish. Everything looked the same, and yet everything was different, because she wasn't here. And he was starting to realize that she never would be again. Ryan hadn't been to the cemetery since the funeral. He had avoided it, afraid, not of her but of the truth he would have to face, that she was really gone, that he couldn't fix this, that no matter how much he wanted to apologize, it would never be enough. But today he forced himself to go. The sky was overcast when he arrived. The air smelled of damp earth, the cold wind biting at his skin. Emily's grave was simple, understated, just like she would have wanted. Emily Lawrence, 1994-2024. You are loved and you are remembered. Ryan let out a shaky breath, kneeling beside the tombstone. For a long time, he didn't say anything. He just sat there, staring at her name, feeling the weight of everything he had lost pressing down on him. I should have been there. His voice was barely above a whisper. I should have answered the phone. His hands clenched into fists. I should have known. The words felt hollow, because no matter how many times he said them, it didn't change the past. It didn't bring her back, and it didn't make up for the fact that she had died alone, waiting for him. Ryan hadn't expected to find anything. But when he returned to Emily's childhood home that evening, something was waiting for him. A small, yellowed envelope tucked away in a drawer he had never thought to check before. His name was written on the front in her familiar handwriting. Ryan felt his breath catch in his throat. His fingers trembled as he opened the letter, and then he began to read. Ryan, by the time you read this, I don't know if I'll still be here. I hope I am. But if I'm not, I need you to know something. I never hated you. Not even when you broke my heart. Not even when you stopped looking at me the way you used to. Not even when I realized that you had chosen someone else. I wanted to hate you. I wanted to be angry. But I couldn't. Because I loved you too much. And maybe that was my mistake. Maybe I loved you more than you ever loved me, but that's okay. I don't regret it. I just wish I had been enough. I just wish you had seen me, really seen me, before it was too late. But I guess that doesn't matter anymore, does it? Goodbye, Ryan. I hope one day you find the happiness you couldn't find with me. I hope one day I can finally rest. Ryan's hands shook as he gripped the letter, his vision blurring with tears he had held back for too long. I just wish you had seen me before it was too late. The words felt like a knife to the chest. Because she was right. He hadn't seen her. He had looked right through her while she was still alive, too caught up in his own world, too convinced that she would always be there. And now, she wasn't. And he had no one to blame but himself. Ryan let out a choked sob, his shoulders shaking. For the first time in his life, he truly understood what it meant to lose someone forever, and he realized this was his real punishment. Not the nightmares, not the haunting, not the whispers in the dark, but this. Living every single day knowing that the woman who had once loved him more than anything had died, thinking she wasn't enough, knowing that she had spent her final moments waiting for him, and that he had never come. That night, Ryan Carter sat alone in his apartment, staring at the skyline of the city he used to love, but it didn't feel like home anymore. Nothing did. Mia was gone. Emily was gone. And for the first time, Ryan realized he was the one left behind, not Emily. She had finally moved on. But him, he was the one trapped in the past now. He was the one haunted. And maybe he always would be. Ryan Carter had lost everything. Mia was gone. Emily was gone. And yet, he was still here. Living, breathing, existing in a world that no longer felt real. He should have been relieved that the hauntings had stopped, that the whispers had faded, that Emily had finally let him go. But now, without her presence, without her voice in the night, he felt emptier than ever. Because he had been wrong. Emily hadn't been the one trapped in the past. He was. And no matter how much he tried to move forward, the weight of his past mistakes dragged him back down. Ryan quit his job. He told himself he needed time to reset, but the truth was, he couldn't function anymore. The law firm didn't matter. The money didn't matter. The prestige, the power, the future he had once fought for. None of it mattered. Not anymore. Not when the only person who had ever believed in him was buried 6 feet under. The penthouse felt too big now, too empty. Too silent. Every corner held a memory. The kitchen, where Emily used to stand on her toes to reach the highest shelves, laughing as Ryan grabbed the flour for her. The couch, where she had fallen asleep more times than he could count, curled up under a blanket, waiting for him to come home. The bedroom, where he had once whispered promises to her in the dark, he never kept. Ryan couldn't stand it. He packed a single bag and left. He didn't know where he was going. He just knew he couldn't stay. For the next 2 weeks, Ryan drifted. He booked hotel rooms in different parts of the city, never staying in one place for more than a few nights. He avoided people. He avoided Mia's calls. He avoided anything that reminded him of the life he had built and destroyed. But no matter where he went, the guilt followed him. Emily's face appeared in every crowd. Her voice echoed in his mind. Her letter replayed in his head over and over again. I just wish you had seen me before it was too late. He tried drowning it in alcohol. He tried pretending, but nothing worked. Because deep down, Ryan Carter knew he didn't deserve to forget. One night, without really thinking, Ryan found himself standing outside Mrs. Lawrence's house. Emily's childhood home. It was small, old, but warm, the kind of place that made you feel like you belonged. Ryan had spent years coming here. As a boy, as a teenager, as a man who had once believed he would marry Emily and grow old with her. But he hadn't been back since the funeral. He didn't deserve to be here. And yet, he knocked anyway. When the door opened, Mrs. Lawrence stared at him for a long moment. She looked older than he remembered. More tired, more broken. Ryan, she finally said, her voice quiet, unreadable. He swallowed the lump in his throat. His voice cracked. I needed to see you. She didn't move for a long time. Then, with a sigh, she stepped aside. Come in. The house smelled the same, vanilla, cinnamon, something warm baking in the oven. Emily had always said that no matter where she lived, this would always be home. Ryan sat stiffly at the kitchen table, his hands clasped together, staring at the cracks in the wooden surface. "I didn't think I'd ever see you again," Mrs. Lawrence said, setting a cup of tea in front of him. Ryan nodded slowly. "I didn't think I deserved to come back." She didn't argue, because they both knew it was true. For a long time, they sat in silence. Then, "Did you love her?" The question hit him like a knife to the chest. Ryan looked up, his throat tightening. "More than anything," he whispered. Mrs. Lawrence sighed, shaking her head. "Then why wasn't that enough?" Ryan closed his eyes. He had asked himself that same question 1,000,000 times, and he still didn't have an answer. Before he left, Mrs. Lawrence handed him a small wooden box. Ryan frowned. "What is this?" "Something Emily wanted you to have," she said softly. His fingers trembled as he took it. "She wrote a letter for you before she got sick. I never gave it to you because I was too angry, too hurt." Ryan swallowed hard. "And now?" Mrs. Lawrence's lips pressed into a thin line. "Now, it doesn't matter what I feel. Because no matter how much I want to hate you, I know one thing for sure." Ryan held his breath. "Emily would have forgiven you." His chest ached. "Even after everything?" he asked, barely above a whisper. Mrs. Lawrence smiled sadly. "She always saw the best in you, Ryan, even when you didn't deserve it." Ryan didn't open the box until he was back in his hotel room. His hands shook as he lifted the lid. Inside, there were a few small things: a dried rose from their first date, a concert ticket from the night he had told her he loved her for the first time, a necklace he had given her on their anniversary, and beneath it all, a folded piece of paper. His breath caught. He unfolded it carefully, his eyes scanning the familiar handwriting. "I don't know if you'll ever read this, but if you do, I want you to know one thing. I never stopped loving you. Even when you stopped loving me. Even when I realized I was losing you. Even when I knew I was dying and you were never coming back. I still loved you, but I won't beg for you to love me back. I won't ask you to miss me. I just hope, one day, you remember me not as the girl you left behind, but as the girl who once made you happy. Because despite everything, Ryan, you made me happy. And I hope, wherever I am now, I can finally rest knowing that once, just once, I was enough." Ryan let the letter slip from his fingers. Tears blurred his vision, but he didn't wipe them away. Because for the first time since Emily had died, he let himself cry. He cried for the girl he had once loved, for the life he had thrown away, for the forgiveness he didn't deserve, but she had given him anyway. And as he sat there, alone in the dim hotel room, he whispered the only words he could. "I remember you, Emily. I always will." Ryan Carter didn't know how to live without Emily Lawrence. For weeks he had tried to run from the past, drown himself in guilt, convince himself that he deserved to suffer. But now, after reading her final words, he knew the truth. Emily hadn't wanted him to suffer. She had only ever wanted him to remember her, to remember their love, their laughter, the life they had once dreamed of together. And somehow, he had to learn to live with that, not in pain, not in regret, but in a way that honored who she was, even if he didn't deserve it. The first thing he did was get rid of the penthouse. It had never felt like home. Not really. It had been a symbol of success, power, status, everything he thought he had wanted. But in the end, it had only become a prison, a place filled with memories of what he had ruined, of the woman he had let slip through his fingers. So he sold it, quickly, without hesitation, and for the first time in years, he felt lighter, because now he wasn't holding on to a space that she would never return to. Now he could finally breathe again. Ryan didn't know why he went back to their old house, the one they had lived in before everything fell apart. Maybe he wanted to punish himself. Maybe he wanted to feel close to her again. Or maybe, deep down, he was looking for closure. When he stepped inside, the air was thick with dust, but the memories came rushing back. The couch where they had spent lazy Sundays watching movies, the kitchen where she had once burned cookies and blamed it on him, the small balcony where she had stood on tiptoes to kiss him under the stars. Everything was the same, and yet nothing was, because she wasn't here. And for the first time, Ryan accepted that. She wasn't coming back. But maybe, just maybe, he could still make things right. Ryan spent the next few days sorting through the remnants of their life together, old photos, forgotten birthday cards, little notes she had left him over the years, sticky notes on the fridge, messages scribbled in books, tiny reminders that she had always loved him even when he hadn't deserved it. And then, buried in a drawer, he found a letter he had written to her, but never sent. It was dated 3 months before she died. Ryan's hands trembled as he unfolded the paper, his heart pounding in his chest. Emily, I don't know how to say this, so I'll just write it down instead. Maybe one day I'll find the courage to actually tell you. I know I've been distant. I know you think I don't love you anymore, but that's not true. It's never been true. I'm just afraid of what I don't even know, maybe of losing you, maybe of not being enough for you, maybe of admitting that I don't know how to fix what's broken between us. But I want to try. I swear I do. Because you're the best thing that ever happened to me, Emily, and I don't want to lose you. So please just hold on a little longer. Let me figure this out. Let me be the man you deserve again. I love you, even when I don't say it enough, even when I don't show it the way I should. I love you, Em, and I always will. Ryan clenched the letter in his hands, his vision blurring with unshed tears. He had written this, he had meant every word. But he had never given it to her, and now it was too late. She had died, never knowing how much he still loved her. And that was something he would never forgive himself for. Ryan didn't know how to say goodbye. But when he stood in front of Emily's grave the next morning, he tried anyway. He placed a bouquet of white lilies, the flowers she had loved the most, gently beside her headstone. Then he pulled the unsent letter from his pocket and placed it on top. I should have given this to you a long time ago, he murmured. I should have told you everything before it was too late. His voice cracked. I loved you, Emily. I still do. And I think I always will. The wind whispered around him, rustling the trees, and for the first time in a long time, Ryan felt at peace, because he knew, wherever she was, Emily Lawrence had finally heard the words she had been waiting for, and she was smiling. Ryan Carter would never be the same. He would never love someone the way he had loved Emily. He would never forget the mistakes he had made. But he was still here, and she had forgiven him. So maybe, just maybe, it was time to forgive himself too. Not to move on, not to forget, but to live, the way Emily would have wanted him to. And for the first time as he walked away from her grave, Ryan Carter finally believed maybe he could. Ryan Carter had spent months trapped in the past, haunted by regrets, drowning in guilt, holding on to a love that had already slipped through his fingers. But today, as he stood in front of Emily Lawrence's grave for the last time, he finally understood. He couldn't keep living in a life that no longer existed. Emily was gone, but he was still here, and for the first time he realized what that truly meant. It meant he had to move forward, not to erase her, not to forget her, but to live the life she never got the chance to. The cemetery was quiet, the morning sun casting long shadows across the grass. Ryan took a deep breath and knelt beside Emily's grave, tracing his fingers over the engraved letters of her name. I don't know if you can hear me, Em, he murmured, his voice steady for the first time in months, but I just wanted to say thank you. He swallowed hard. Thank you for loving me when I didn't deserve it. Thank you for forgiving me, even when I couldn't forgive myself. Thank you for everything. He exhaled slowly, staring at the white lilies he had brought. I don't know where I'm going next. I don't know who I'm supposed to be without you. But I do know one thing. I won't waste this life anymore. He smiled, a small, broken thing, but real nonetheless. I'll make you proud, Emily. I promise. The wind picked up, rustling the leaves, and for a brief moment Ryan swore he felt something. A warmth, a presence. A quiet, gentle goodbye. He closed his eyes, letting it wash over him, and when he opened them again, he knew. It was time to let her go. Ryan didn't need the old house anymore. It had been a place filled with memories, but it wasn't home, not without Emily. So he put it on the market. He packed away their old things, keeping only the small pieces of her that he couldn't bear to part with. The necklace she had worn every day, the book she never got to finish. The last letter she had written to him. Everything else, he let go. Not because he wanted to, but because he had to. For the first time in years, Ryan left the city. He took a job in a quiet town upstate, far from the noise, far from the memories, far from who he used to be. He rented a small apartment. He learned to enjoy the silence instead of fearing it. He started running again, something he and Emily used to do together before life had pulled them apart. Little by little, the weight in his chest became easier to carry, and one day he woke up and realized he could finally breathe again. It happened unexpectedly. Ryan was sitting in a cafe, flipping through an old book when someone bumped into his table, nearly knocking over his coffee. "Oh God, I'm so sorry." He looked up. A woman stood there, flustered, apologetic, smiling. She had dark hair, but not like Emily's. She had warm brown eyes full of life. She wasn't Emily. And for the first time, Ryan didn't wish she was. "It's fine," he said, offering a small smile in return. "Really." She hesitated, then tilted her head. "You look familiar." Ryan chuckled, shaking his head. "I get that a lot." She laughed softly, then nodded toward the chair across from him. "Mind if I sit?" For a moment, Ryan hesitated. Then he took a deep breath and nodded. "Yeah," he said. "I'd like that." That night, Ryan had a dream. He was standing in a familiar field under a sky full of stars, and Emily was there. She wasn't sad. She wasn't angry. She was just smiling. "You did it," she said softly. Ryan swallowed the lump in his throat. "Did what?" Emily's smile grew. "You finally let me go." He exhaled slowly, staring at the woman he had once thought he could never live without. "I'll always love you, Em." She nodded. "I know." The wind picked up, carrying her voice away. "And I'll always love you too, Ryan." She took a step back. "But it's time for you to be happy now." Ryan felt tears prickle at the edges of his vision, but for the first time they weren't from pain. They were from peace. "Goodbye, Emily." Emily Lawrence smiled one last time, and then she was gone. Ryan Carter woke up with a deep breath, feeling lighter than he ever had before. Emily was at peace, and finally, so was he. It wasn't the end. It was just the beginning, and this time he wouldn't waste it. Not for a second. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a like and subscribe so you don't miss any future content.